Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Life in the Cosmos with me, Riley Adair. Today, we're going to be doing a very basically impromptu episode all about the current climate of the cosmos and how it might be affecting you. So, I'm going to be going into the stories that have been playing out for the last year astrologically and how those stories are shaping up now and what those stories are evolving into in your life now and how that may be affecting you. I'm going to be talking broad level here, like this is going to be very general about the planets and their significations and their journey through the houses. But if you want to get the most out of this episode, I suggest you pull up your birth chart on AstroSeek. For reference, I use whole sign houses. So in the birth data and settings, you can click on whole sign houses if you kind of want to follow the system that I use. And then I've also attached a PDF of the houses and their significations and what it means so that you can see what areas of your life are these stories evolving into. Because I really want to make astrology come to life for you and so that you can see take a real look at your life and see how the planets are actually affecting you and what sagas and odysseys you've been on over the last year or so. The most obvious place to start is as I'm filming this, it's September 22nd, 2025. So yesterday was the South Node eclipse in Virgo. At the beginning of September, we had a North Node lunar eclipse in Pisces. So, what does that mean? A North Node eclipse is all about a growing hunger. So the North Node is a feeling of like an insatiable hunger, something you're longing for, something that you're reaching for, something you want to grab and hold on to. So this is something that you're reaching up towards and you're trying to get to, and it's almost like the direction of your life that you're trying to move into. So look at what sign is ruled by Pisces in your birth chart, and that will show you what it is that you're reaching towards. So, for me, I'm a Gemini rising. Pisces is my 10th house of career. And this lunar eclipse in Pisces in the North Node has been all about a growing desire and a hunger, an insatiable desire to figure out my career, reach some level of like acclaim and not necessarily just in like a public way, but in a way of like there's just this like insatiable desire for like I have this dream that I want. This dream I'm working towards and I'm gonna keep moving towards it. So if you're a Virgo rising and Pisces is your seventh house, this could be an insatiable desire or longing for something in the area of relationships. Is this the relationship you're in isn't giving you what you need, or do you need more of one particular thing in your relationship? Um, are you recently broken up with someone and you're trying to now figure your life out and what maybe your relationships to relationships itself are like? Like, do you want something different in your next partner? What are your one-on-one friendships like? So if you're a Sagittarius rising and Pisces is your fourth house of home, you may have a great desire to feel more grounded and more rooted or like to reconnect with your family of origin and to trace back to your roots or move homes or have an entire home renovation or even to create a lasting and stable foundation for your family. So I'm going to back it up here because this is what I'm talking about with an overall journey that you guys have been on. So look at what Pisces is in your birth chart and what house is ruled by Pisces. You can reference the PDF that I put in the comments about just like some simple significations of what the houses mean, but we'll just quickly run through them. The first house is your self and body. The second house is your ego, your finances, and your values. The third house is siblings, neighborhoods, communication, messaging. Fourth house, home, family, living situation. Fifth house, creativity. So this is like entrepreneurial type stuff, pleasure, hobbies, things you do for fun, and children. The sixth house is acts of service. It's the work house, your everyday work, your everyday grind, your daily rituals in the house of health, and also the house of bad fortune in the physical sense. So, getting sick or whatever. The seventh house is the house of marriage. I'd also see like your one-on-one best friends here, like not the broad groups of people, but the people that you spend one-on-one time with. The eighth house is the house of death, inheritances, other people's money, and you could probably put taxes in there too. Random. The ninth house is the house of God, the house of higher learning, education, university, philosophy, astrology. The 10th house is the house of public acclaim. It's the things that you do to create your success in the world, how the world perceives you. The 10th house is like the public stage. The 11th house is the house of good spirit. So it's wishes, your dreams, your hopes, your desires, and broader communities of people, broad social networks, and friends. The 12th house is a house of undoing, self-undoing. It's the house of bad spirit. So this is like the house of our mental health, mental well-being, addictions, spirituality and like the consciousness. Like I would say it's like the subconscious mind in a lot of ways. So look at the place that at the house that Pisces rules because this Pisces part of our chart has been getting hit so hard, so hard for, the last 3 years. So if you're born at night, Saturn is going to be your most difficult planet. If you're born during the day, Saturn's going to be still challenging, but not as difficult. So, March of 2023, Saturn was moved into Pisces. So, whatever area of your life is ruled by Pisces, you basically received this cold, wet blanket to whatever fire you were creating. It was like Saturn loves limits. Saturn loves restriction. Saturn loves to not give you what you want until you've worked your ass off for it, or even then, it might just take things away. Saturn is like depression. Saturn is feeling old. Like physically, you could feel old. You could also feel like you start to like look like you've aged a lot more. Saturn is like, imagine pushing a boulder up a hill and Saturn adds weight to your feet, weight to your arms, and is like, okay, now push it up. And then once you get to the top, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. But we'll never let you reach that pinnacle point. And the we haven't reached this pinnacle point of the Saturn return, or sorry, the pinnacle point of this Saturn transit because Saturn is still going to transit Pisces until February 13th of 2026. And maybe pinnacle point was the wrong word to use there, but there's this idea that sometimes Saturn will give you your karma in the sense that, if you work hard for something, Saturn will reward you for finding out the truth of your nature, the truth of a situation, or reward your hard work, and you'll receive like a level of acclaim or reach a position of prestige. And I think that's definitely true for people born during the day. And that's not to say it can't happen for people born at night. It can. It's just that sometimes like Saturn transits can be really hard. They can bring depression, they can bring sadness, they can bring mental health issues, they can bring poverty, it can bring feelings like you're never gonna get what you need and what you want. And, I don't want to wrap it all up as like if you work hard enough, you'll just get to where you're going because it's sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Like sometimes we just lose things and sometimes we don't get what we want. And it doesn't matter if we work hard or, if this is a problem we've been trying to solve. It's just, it just sometimes is the way that it is. And one thing that I noticed a lot about Saturn is that it will really make it so that if what you're doing is not in line with what you're truly meant to do, or who you're meant to be, or how your body's meant to look, like for you, not for beauty standards or anything, but specifically for you, if you're not aligned to your authenticity, Saturn's going to make it unbearable. And I'm just saying this through experience, but also I've seen people with transiting Saturn through their first house, and it'll bring a lot, like it can, that's when people may transition because they were like, I was living this way before, and it's not, it just never really was true for me. So now I need to move forward. The same could be said for like Saturn in the fifth house. Maybe you were shy about your sexuality and now you're open with it, Saturn in the 10th house. Maybe you were in a career because you were told that was a career you're supposed to have, but but then you just went through a phase where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep moving. I know someone had Saturn takes a long time. I just did a reading for someone who had Saturn transiting the eighth, and they've had this process of losing their one of their parents to dementia. And she said that it's like a constant process of loss. It's a slow process of loss because the eighth house represents death, and Saturn is gonna take things and drag them out, and Saturn represents time, so it'll everything with Saturn takes time. And I thought that was such a good representation of Saturn in the eighth because it's like you don't get the clean cut of a knife with Mars transiting, and that's not, which would be a quick death, right? Which would be, could be terrible, but sometimes better than watching someone die and having to grieve them while they're still alive. So this has been the backdrop. And then even prior to March of 2023, Neptune has been transiting Pisces for a very long time now. I'm gonna say like 10 years. And so Neptune brings about a layer of fog and a layer of confusion. And it feels like you can't quite break through. And it's almost like what you're seeing isn't actually there and it actually isn't real. And, maybe you over idealize something in that Pisces part of your chart only to find out that the dream you were moving towards, the art you were creating actually had no substance. Neptune is now in Aries and it will retrograde back into Pisces. But so you've had this Pisces part of your chart where things were confusing, things were difficult. You maybe thought you were moving towards something only to realize the rug was pulled out from under you and what you thought you had, you actually don't have it all. In March, February of this year, April, we had Venus doing a retrograde between Aries and Pisces. So Venus is the planet of love, beauty, art, harmony. And when Venus does a retrograde, you'll see Venus will usually, on most transits, bring a level of beauty, harmony, relationships, creativity to whatever part of your life is being transited. So this could be like, let's say Pisces is your second house and you're in Aquarius rising, you could have found that you were getting money coming in from whatever it was that you were doing at the time. And then because when Venus retrogrades backwards, it's like doing something a little bit differently than how you were doing it before. Very obvious example of Venus is you created this piece of art, put your heart and soul into it. And that was when Venus was in Pisces. You kept doing it all through Venus's transit into Aries. Once Venus started retrograding backwards, you realize you're like, oh, but wait, should I have created the art that way? Like, should I have made the piece this way? And like, what is this really saying? And like, who am I actually trying to be as an artist? And then since Venus went direct and left Aries, and made its way back through, you may have found that you actually gained some level of clarity in that area, that maybe you did your art a little bit differently, but the way you did it differently works for you. So that was a much shorter transition. So this is just like a little win or a little boost of clarity in that Pisces part of your chart. Right now, as we're, you know, we had the eclipses, which signal major endings and major beginnings in Virgo and Pisces, and they started September of 2024. I know I'm throwing a lot of dates here, and I know this is one really confusing thing about astrology is like, I feel like anytime I talk to people about it, I'm throwing out so many dates that I feel like it gets so bogged down and confusing. It's just that this Pisces part of your life has been an odyssey. It's been a long journey. It's been something that you're moving through and figuring it out. Like if you're a mutable rising sign, so if you're Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, or Gemini rising, and this Pisces part of your chart is hitting one of the main parts of your charts. This is your first house of self, your fourth house of family, 10th house of career, and seventh house of marriage. You're probably going to notice those transits a lot more because those are the pillars of your life. The cadent and succedent houses are everything else. The cadent houses are the third, sixth, ninth, and 12th. The succedent is the second, fifth, eighth, and 11th. So those areas of your life typically are not as important unless you have a lot of planets in one of those parts of your chart. So you may not notice that these transits as much. But with the eclipses moving through Pisces and Virgo, eclipses signify major endings and major beginnings. So we have this part of the Pisces part of your chart that you've been pushing forward and trying to figure out some problem or some modality, some way of being that is authentic to you. And you may not have gotten to the result. You may have not, this problem is not yet figured out. Saturn is still transiting and you're still pushing. And honestly, it's starting to feel really, really long. And then we get these eclipses coming in and shaking things up. And the eclipses with the North Node in Pisces currently, the North Node representing a growing hunger, a growing desire. It basically gives you the image of someone who has been starved for a very long time of something that they desperately desire and desperately crave. And now they are like, I'm hungry and I'm gonna go and try and get whatever it is you're yearning for in this Pisces part of your chart. And thank God, like, I'm not sure if it's just me, but thank God for these Pisces eclipses because I feel like it's so beautiful that the eclipses are happening right as the Saturn transit is wrapping up because Saturn is such a long haul, and Pisces, it's like with the eclipses, you're like, finally, I'm seeing some change, I'm seeing some movement. And the eclipses take about 2 years to cycle through. So it's like, okay, we're moving somewhere. Like we're actually, you did the work, you put in the time, you learned the lesson, and now we're starting to see changes. And thank God. Okay. Lunar eclipses, they can signify like a wrapping up and a culmination. And when we think of lunar energy, so which is the moon's energy, the moon in astrology is always associated with the physical form and things that are actually grounded into reality. So what's a physical form? My body, your body, this couch, this chair, those candles. Like it's like your car, your job, your things that are like right here, right in front of us. Like we can see them with our faces. So there's like a wrapping up and a culmination and like almost reaching something that is a hunger and a reaching for something that is grounded in the reality. So something that's like it's not like it's just a seed of an idea that you're planting. Like it's a full-on fucking tree. We have something here. Like it's grounded into reality. So you're hungering, you're yearning for something in this Pisces part of your chart. And it's going to be such sweet relief when Saturn moves out of Pisces in February 13th of 2026. So guys, if this is your Saturn return, I'm currently going through my Saturn return in my 10th house, and you're going to make it through. This is a long haul, but we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. And it's so, so beautiful to see these eclipses bringing us something tangible. Or even because, we're in the middle of this eclipse corridor, like eclipses take about 18 months make its way through the entire sign or for the nodes to move. So we're seeing this story playing out and we're seeing something being created. So it's like at every Pisces eclipse, it's almost like you're putting something new to the tree. You're adding a branch. You see a new flower coming off a branch. Like it's like I know these all these metaphors are going crazy, but we're seeing something change and take form here. So keep going, guys. You got this. It's all happening. I can't wait. Let me know how your journey with these Pisces transits have been because boy, I'm feeling it and I don't know if you guys are too. Now, if you feeling like you're going crazy or you're just so emotional and shit is just coming back and you thought you resolved something, you thought you let go of an old way of identifying yourself, or you let go of a person, or you let go of just something in your life, but now in the last, few weeks, it's been rising up and you feel like you're going crazy because you're so emotional. I want you to look at where Virgo is in your birth chart. What house is Virgo for you? Because we just had a solar eclipse on the south node through Virgo. And Venus, the planet of love and beauty, is currently in Virgo. So, what does that mean? South node solar eclipses are all about letting go of ways of being, ways of identifying yourself, letting go of people, places, attachments. The solar energy, so the sun's energy, is always connected to the consciousness. If the moon is the body, the sun is the mind, it's the spirit. And solar eclipses can bring new beginnings, new things taking shape and taking form, like little seeds being planted. But at the same time, eclipses on the south node mean that we're letting go of something. And my experience with this is it's a beautiful thing to hunger for something and to yearn for something like a north node eclipse, but letting go of things that used to hold you down, hold you back, people you used to love, like that is a hard, hard process. And it's it will bring up feelings that are honestly really uncomfortable that you thought maybe you dealt with, and maybe you thought you're like, okay, I've done the healing, I've done the work, like I've done everything I can do. Like, why is this feeling rising up in me again? Why am I crying like this happened yesterday? Why do I still identify myself the way that I identified myself as a child? Or why do I still love that person? And why am I crying over them? And why can't I just let go of them already? And I think the thing is like letting go, in my experience, specifically with this eclipse, is it's ugly, it's painful, and it's not this like letting go sounds like this like beautiful of detachment, but my experience is that letting go is actually low-key brutal sometimes, depending on what it is you're letting go of. And it will bring up feelings that you may have thought you resolved and bring them up like they're fresh and like they're holding themselves, holding it in your heart or holding it in your mind. And that's challenging. And it might just be like you have to go dive back into the ocean of whatever that experience is for you, because it's only if we move through it that we're able to let go of it. One of my friends is a Virgo rising. Virgo is her first house, and Venus is currently in Virgo. Venus is the planet of love, beauty, and marriage. She is currently letting go of her husband, who she's currently divorcing. She's letting go of this marriage and this life that they had built together, and her way of identifying herself through her marriage and through her partner. And, 2 weeks ago, she felt like around the Pisces eclipse, she felt like, okay, I'm getting there, now I know what I want in my next partner. I realized that this guy didn't treat her the way that he should have, and all this kind of stuff. And then the Virgo eclipse hit yesterday, and she's been a wreck because it's a really painful process to have all those emotions come back and to basically revisit all the ways in which she's still hurting over it. And having Venus, the planet of love and beauty, and the South Node, it's for a lot of people, you might be letting go of a relationship. You might be letting go of someone that you loved or an art form that you loved. And Venus also represents women. So, like, let's say if Virgo's your 11th house and you're a Scorpio rising, this could be letting go of friends, like specifically female friends that you once had. And, depending on that relationship, it can be super painful, right? Like, I know it's really emotional right now with the eclipses, and it's really made worse by the Mars Pluto square. Mars will be moving into Scorpio pretty soon, and I love Mars and Scorpio, maybe because I'm a Mars and Scorpio myself, but it's squaring Pluto, and Mars is a planet of action and drive, and Pluto is a planet of transformation. The Mars transits is another long story that's been so fascinating, and I've been loving following it because in September of 2024, Mars first entered Cancer. Cancer is this warm, nurturing, um, emotional sign. It's a water sign. Mars is a planet of action, aggression, and drive. To my nighttime babies, Mars is going to be a challenging planet, but it's not going to be as challenging as it is for daytime babies, daytime births. For daytime bursts, Mars will be very challenging. So you could be getting the rough side of Mars sometimes. What is the rough side of Mars? This is anger, aggression, brutality, war is very Martian. Aggressive men in the military, like alpha type energy. Like it's it's giving toxic masculinity, I'm not gonna lie. And Mars can create burning, it can create cutting, severing. So like, cutting yourself. Surgery is a very Martian thing because you're literally cutting into the body and there's blood and it's all about basically penetration. And so for some people, this could be having someone removed from your life, or having something you love literally burned to the ground, or having your marriage be fraught with conflict, if you're a Capricorn rising and Cancer's in your seventh house, or whatever it is. I know for me, because born at night, Mars has proven to be more of an area wherever Mars is transiting, that's usually an area where I'm putting a lot of energy and drive into. So a lot of focus, a lot of like go there, like let's get it done. Like it's like a lot of like driving towards whatever it is in that area where Mars is transiting. So Mars from like September of 2024 to June of 2025, Mars was making its way through Cancer. It went into Leo and then it retrograded backwards. So I'm going to give you a very clear example so you can kind of use this to see how it might apply in your life, I want you to look at what houses are ruled by Cancer and Leo in your birth chart. So for me, as a Gemini rising, Cancer is my second house. The second house is a lot to do with entrepreneurial activities, finances, like anything where we're kind of like just making money. And Mars, specifically in the second house, can be like making money through independent means, through having a side hustle or whatever. And Leo is my third house of communication and short distance travel. So, like I said earlier, when there's a retrograde planet, it's like you move forward and then all of a sudden you got to roll it right back because the area that you were moving through turns out that it wasn't that great and it wasn't the way you're supposed to move. And then you had to go back, figure it out again, to like do something totally differently and then keep going. So for me, when Mars was in Cancer, when it started in September 2024, I was doing psychic fairs as an astrologer, and I basically realized that the money wasn't there, uh, that I wasn't like that I was having some issues with the organization itself, whatever. And I was doing all this short distance travel to the fairs to make money because whenever a planet retrogrades, it's connecting those two houses of your chart. So for me, it was my second house of money, my third house of short distance travel, communication, and learning. So I had a little crisis moment of being like, this isn't going to work out for me and decided to stop doing the fairs and decided to put all of my energy, all of my drive into completing Chris Brennan's Hellenistic astrology course, which, by the way, highly recommend, but also it's it was a huge energy output because there's so many lectures and I wanted to do it well, blah, 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 blah. So I complete the course, and then I get this idea that maybe I want to start a podcast. And then all of a sudden, all my energy is going into the podcast. And then Mars starts its retrograde back. And I'm like, I had went this very classic journey of starting with psychic fairs, thinking that's the thing I wanted to do. And then going back to the drawing board, finishing my course, and starting a podcast, which was a huge energy output, but ultimately, I think like more in line with what I'm meant to be doing. So that Cancer and Leo part of your chart was getting heavily afflicted by Mars. It basically just means that if you're a daytime baby, that part of your chart was probably hard for the last year. You were probably, especially if let's say Mars was in your first house, maybe you're getting more cuts, more burns. Maybe you were just actually outputting a lot of energy and maybe it even led to a level of burnout. So you had this whole saga with Mars, right? Through Cancer and Leo. And then we have the greater benefic, Jupiter, the planet of luck, abundance, and expansion. And in June, Jupiter moved into Cancer. So Jupiter's coming in, and you're like, okay, guys, I know you put in all this energy output into this Cancer real part of your chart, and I'm here to give you the gifts. But it wasn't going to give you the gifts right away because it had to clear an aspect, and it basically you would have started really noticing the effects of Jupiter in Cancer in July. And Jupiter is going to give you a gift in the area of your chart ruled by Cancer. So in the ninth house, like let's say Cancer rules your ninth house, you're a Scorpio rising. You may all of a sudden feel a burning desire to go travel. Jupiter will expand whatever it touches. If you have Cancer ruling your second house of finances, maybe you're finally seeing some financial gains, some financial windfalls. Jupiter is going to be transiting Cancer until June of 2026. So this is a year-long transit, and it's okay if you don't see this all playing out right now, because this is a theme that's going to be happening over the next year. Like if you have Jupiter in your 11th house, since Jupiter moved into Cancer, you may have noticed that all of a sudden it's so easy to have all these friends and all these social plans, whereas you might have just been coming out of a period where it was actually really tough with your friends and like you weren't able to find your people or you had sudden friendship breakups or, whatever. Or even like, let's say you went through a really Jupiter Cancer rules your seventh house and you went through a really tough period with your partner and you made it through. Congratulations. And now Jupiter is there to be like, here's the great blessings for you guys for making it through. Or maybe even if Cancer rules your seventh house and that Mars transit resulted in a breakup, maybe Jupiter coming in is introducing you to a new person and expanding your horizons in ways you never imagined, or even just like expanding your connection to relationships in general and introducing people who expand your mind and make you believe in great positive things. So I love it. I love it because Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. It can reach its greatest level of gift giving. So those are some of the main transits that have been happening. I know that this is such a long time period that we're talking about. We talked about 3 years with Saturn and 2 years with the eclipses, and it's hard to all keep track of it. But it's just so beautiful to really see the stories that are developing. Like things can change overnight, of course, and there are many moments in life where, your life changes in an instant, but it's very interesting to see how the transits and the eclipses all work together to create these ongoing stories that don't wrap up in one day or in one week, but are representative of like greater periods of your life. We're always going on different journeys and like different ways of being, and we're always evolving. So it's beautiful to witness all the astrology working together. And I hope what you learned today gives that greater context and you're able to see how these themes have played out in your life. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I would love that, obviously. And yeah, please drop a comment. I would love to know your experiences. Like, I, of course, know my own, I know my friends, but I love to hear about your experiences of these transits and how these things have been playing out for you. So please, guys, let me know and good luck. Smoother waters ahead. And just, I wish you guys all the best.